The 11 million were already going back before our Congressman Cantor and the rest of the Democrats announced that they're going to let kids stay and come in. Now there's a whole new wave coming in due to Eric Cantor's, and so that's where we are.
So, Sam Stein, if you have a guy like that going around your district all the time and you're holding fundraisers in Washington, D.C. the morning of your election and going across the country raising money for everybody else because you want to be Speaker of the House sometime, that's not good news. I mean, seriously, again, I know people are absolutely shocked when I actually draw upon my personal experiences when I was in Washington, D.C. I suppose I should, when talking about this race, talk about when I was a football coach at Catholic high school. But what the hell? I'm going to talk about the 4 races I ran successfully. I would no more be in Washington, D.C. within 3 months of my campaign. At a fundraiser, I mean, knocking on doors. Even when you know, the last time I won with 80% of the vote, I was sweating it out in August, knocking on doors, holding town hall meetings, going crazy, assuming I was 40 points behind. And most people that like staying in Washington, D.C. do that. I mean, Cantor took his eye off the ball here, didn't he?
I believe so. Listen, I've been studying David Bratt's record for all of 6 hours, so I know.
Okay, well, there you go. You know everything.
So I know that he connected with the voters much more. I think you're actually, hit the nail on the head. I don't, objectively, I don't think that there was a really great case to make that Eric Cantor was some sort of moderate or liberal. His record was clearly conservative, putting aside immigration reform. The problem, at least according to the people I talked to in Republican and Democratic circles, was that there was a lack of sincerity, apparently, in Eric Cantor, and that he didn't go back and tend to his district. So, take, for instance, immigration reform. He was sending out mailers in the last couple of weeks arguing that he was anti-amnesty, that he was really the hardline anti-immigration candidate in the race, and people just laughed at it because he had been in Washington, D.C., making the public always saying that immigration reform wasn't dead, floating the possibility of a DREAM Act. And when you do things like that, you begin to get tarred as an insincere Paul. And I think that was really, there's no unifying theory here, but I think that was a really big problem for Eric Cantor last night.
And Al Hunt, we're going to go to Richmond in 1 minute. Willie's going to go to Richmond in 1 minute. But, if you're going to do that, and Newt talked about this last night, if you're for the DREAM Act, then go home and hold town hall meetings and tell people why you're for the DREAM Act and say, hey, I do this all the time. You may not agree with me here, but listen, here I am, and I'm going to be here for 2 hours. Let's talk about this. And you go across your district and you do that 10, 20 times, and by the end of it, people go, don't agree with him completely, but I understand where he's coming from. Eric Cantor never did that.
Yeah, no question, Joe. He became out of touch, he became arrogant, and all the above. But let me just address immigration for a second. Eric Cantor was for the DREAM Act, but that's only a small piece of immigration reform. He is well to the right of Marco Rubio on immigration. This is not some guy, let them all in, the pathway to citizenship for everybody. And from a little bit, Sam probably has about an hour more of study of Mr. Bratt than I do. But based on my exposure, immigration was an important issue that Bratt raised, and he raised it continuously. So I think, again, whether it's right or wrong, the message that he sends to colleagues is, boy, let's stay away from immigration.
Let me jump in on that, because he raised immigration, but in a really weird and nuanced way, in that he framed Eric Cantor as being sort of a crony corporatist over immigration. So he said Eric Cantor's doing the bidding of the Chamber of Commerce. He ran these ads with Eric Cantor and Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook, in which he said Eric Cantor wants to bring in immigrants into this country so they can go work for corporations like Facebook. So it wasn't just saying that he was pro-immigration reform. It was saying that he was doing it for his own political benefits, for his own political donors.
Willie Geist, this is, and we've talked about it on air with a few people here, but this campaign is a textbook way for Republicans to win in the future, where you're not just anti-big government, you're anti-big business. You're anti-crony capitalism. Exactly. It's the stuff that I've been talking about for years. You're anti-establishment, and you were just as offended by a big bank bailout on Wall Street as you are with Obamacare, because it's crony capitalism and it's the insiders winning. And Obamacare, it's the American Hospital Association and Big Pharma and the big insurance companies cutting deals so they're taken care of while small businesses are hurt, which is the truth. And on the bank bailouts, you got the biggest banks in the world winning while everybody else is getting screwed. That is the Republican way forward, especially against a pro-Goldman Sachs Democrat like Hillary Clinton. Last night was the roadmap. We got to go to Richmond first, and then we'll continue this conversation. I know everybody wants to jump in on this, and they will.
And by the way, most of us hadn't heard that, but Brat said it last night in his victory speech, and that was exactly what you're saying right there is basically what he said in his speech last night. Let's go to Richmond. Julian Walker covers state government for the Virginian Pilot in Richmond, has been looking at this race very closely. Julian, good morning. Thanks for being on with us. Take us inside what happened last night. I mean, what we're hearing this morning, most of the reporting coming out is saying that Cantor was aloof, that his field effort was basically non-existent, that he had taken this for granted. He was at a fundraiser on Capitol Hill yesterday morning on Election Day. What else are we missing about this story here, because it was such a shock?
Well, you're absolutely right. It's shocking, and it caused earthquakes in the Virginia political establishment and within Virginia Republican circles. That's the term that one longtime Republican hand used with me last night. There were some hints that there might be trouble on the horizon, but even all of the available public polling suggested that a victory for Brat would be if he scored over 40%. And instead, he won by double digits, and this was not a low turnout primary race. There were 68,000 votes in this district. Eric Cantor lost his home county of Henrico County, which borders Richmond, the capital city, lost Hanover County, the county just north of that. Meanwhile, in the Northern Virginia 8th District primary, which had multiple Democratic candidates, he had 35,000 people show up. So this was just all the way around. I think this has blown people's minds. The one thing I would point out, though, again, about some of the hints of trouble on the horizon here, was that just about a month ago, Eric Cantor's hand-picked party boss was defeated for a local party seat for the 7th Congressional District Committee chairmanship after they had a iron grip on that position.
Yeah, and that was, Julian, that was obviously seen as a warning shot. Let me ask you really quickly. From my understanding, Derek Kitts tweeted something out last night that more people voted in this 2014 primary than voted in the 2012 primary in the presidential year. Now, my question is that all Republican Tea Party types, or is it an open primary where Democrats could swarm over and vote against Eric Cantor because they dislike him so much?
Well, Virginia is not a party registration state, so we do have open primaries here. So there's probably a mix of both. As you pointed out, there was no major Tea Party group that endorsed Dave Brat, but the underpinnings of this race, there was Tea Party support from folks who were upset with the establishment, as many of your panelists have pointed out. So I think it's a mix of things. Whether or not this is a real Operation Chaos with Democrats crossing over in droves to try to knock off Eric Cantor, I'm not sure of that, but I think there were probably some small elements of that in the electorate.